Hi there. Are you looking for something to listen to while you do something else? I got you. So, to you, it feels like last week that I recorded a video, but to me, it's actually 2 weeks because I had to split the videos and then I struggled with CapCut to get it up. So, this is going to take some getting used to over again. I wanted to speak a bit about the inspiration behind Charmed Vigilance, but I also realized it's going to be a little convoluted if I had one video about the inspiration and then another video about what Charmed Vigilance is actually about, which I realized I haven't actually said yet, or I haven't said what the story is about. So, I was going to just do an inspiration video, but I think it's probably better to do a bit of a mix. So I'm going to say what the story is about, and then I will kind of backtrack and say this was the inspiration, and this is how it affected the story. So it is very difficult for me to say what the story is about because, again, I have this tendency to want to surprise people. And then I don't know what to say and what not to say. So, the gist is there is a female, a woman, that is 20 years old. Her name is Jocelyn Gray. And she has a type of synesthesia. So, I'll see if I have the ability to put in like a little infographic of what synesthesia is. Synaesthesia is an actual condition, a medical condition, a neurological medical condition that people are diagnosed with. I know, for instance, Billie Eilish has it. I, for some reason, thought Phineas has it, her brother, but then I saw an interview where she said she has it. So maybe both of them have it. I'm not sure if it's genetic, but synesthesia, the way I understand it, is people who have the condition, their neurology gets a little bit confused, their senses specifically. So they would smell a color or they would hear shape, stuff like that. So it's just their brain interpreting the signals or the input signals a little bit differently than the atypical person would. So, fun fact, I didn't even know about synesthesia when I wrote this book. When I started it the first time, I later, like quite a bit later, I think maybe even 5 years ago, I heard of this condition and I was like, oh freak, that's actually exactly what I envisioned my character to have. So, Jocelyn has synesthesia, and because she has synesthesia in the way that she has it, she is a medical prodigy. So she has the ability to effectively pick up any instrument and immediately know how to play it. So there's still physiological effects on her from not practicing the instrument, but she kind of goes into this state of flow where she just, let's say, energetically hacks any instrument. Now, when I say instrument, I'm not going to give spoilers, but an instrument, the definition of an instrument is probably like a device or an object that is built in a certain way to make certain sounds. And that's where I'm going to leave that. But she, they don't know what she has, obviously, because it's a little bit odd. And due to this, she feels a little bit rejected in life as a kid growing up. And as I think most families do, you kind of just accept it, but also live past it in the same way. I can't really explain more what I mean by that, but like, I think people are very easily adaptable. So when something happens, you kind of just accept it for what it is, and then you live past it as if it's not really something odd. And I think their family, to a large degree, does it. So she has a mom and dad and a brother whom she lives with. And then she moves to a town because her mom inherited a house from her aunt. So this house is a large, what do you call it, factor in the story that is also like the, let's say, the spark to the entire unraveling. So Jocelyn decides to move with her parents to this house that they have recently come into inheritance with. I don't know if I said that right, whatever, Afrikaans. And this town, which is called Ostia, is a bit of an enigma. It's difficult for me not to jump into inspiration, but I'm just giving the background for now. Ostia is located near a lake with a massive dormant volcano. And this house that they are moving into, a very old house, is embedded right into the volcano. So they live literally on the mountain side or the volcano side. So she moves there, and let's just say there's more to her synesthesia than just normal synesthesia, in the sense that there's actually an energy component to her synesthesia. So it's not only that her senses and neurology is a little, is that the word, neurology? Maybe. It's not that her impulses just get a little bit cross-wired. There's an energy signature linked to that as well. So I think she, just as her family, kind of just accepts this, in a way, debilitating thing as just part of her life. So it's both her blessing and her curse, because it makes her feel weird, and she had to be taken out of school when she was younger because they thought she was prone to seizures. And then they kind of just, adapted to that. And now she's moved to this town, Ostia. And what I will say, before it becomes too much spoilery in a way, it's again difficult. Maybe I end up telling the whole story here. I don't know. We'll see. They move into this house, which is actually like, it's so old and so important to the town history that it is part of annual masquerade. And because it's sort of owned by the town, they are somewhat obligated to continue traditions that the town has had for many years, and the masquerade is one of it. So things are already strange when they set foot in Ostia, for Jocelyn, not for the rest of the family. But the night of the masquerade, she, let's just say there's a spark that happens, and that kind of ignites the whole wick, if I can put it that way. So Ostia, as I imagined it, is like, well, I've already said that Twilight was a big inspiration. So that's the type of forests I imagined, but in a way also not. There's specific parts that they showed in the movie that I really loved, but I wasn't a fan of all the pine trees, and I know like that's something that's kind of expected in a lot of forested areas, but I was envisioning something more akin to Lord of the Rings forests. So this is like this giant dormant volcano with this lush New Zealand, almost India-esque forests. So just like super green, like a green that almost makes your eyes hurt. And I also live in Cape Town, so I often see that type of greenery where it's like almost an assault on your eyes. It's so green. And that's where Ostia is. It's an old town, about 400 years old. And okay, I think that's for now it. I will then move to the inspiration and how they link to what I just told you. I have to go back to earlier years, so high school. The movies for Underworld came out back then, and I actually had a friend that I came from a very small town, so it was a bit of a bubble, and she went to England for a couple of weeks. And when she came back, I feel like her entire personality had changed. And I just remember her talking about Camden Town, and she was just in love with this place. I don't know anything about Camden Town as of this day. I just know she was in love with it. And she had like a goth inspired streak. I won't say goth as in the traditional goth that we would see in media or in England even, but just like Gothic-esque, or more, let's say, morose type of aesthetic. And we were pulled into the entire vampire situation back then. I remember back then, I mean, that was internet of 2022. No, not 2022, 2002. So you didn't get the plethora of pictures that you get now. And I remember looking up very like morbid and dark pictures for her. Now, if I say morbid and dark, I'm not talking about gore. I think she had a big inspiration or impact on me in terms of a visual aesthetic that leans more towards the morose. And that also lured me into, I think, researching a little bit more on architecture. And then I just fell in love with like Gaudi and just Baroque. And I'm not like an expert, but like chateaus and Renaissance and Baroque and Victorian architecture was just like absolutely stunning to me. And if I saw it on like movies or whatever, I was just absolutely in love, and I wanted to live in a house like that. So that was kind of part of the whole vampire aesthetic with Queen of the Damned. Now, Queen of the Damned, I feel the movie needs a very special mention, because there was something about that movie. I know the book fans didn't like it, but I was in love with everything about that film. Just the cinematography, the interactions that Lestat had with Jessie, I think was her name, Jessie, and of course the Queen of the Damned, I think it was her name, Oksana, I can't remember. But the music, I just remember the music of that film had such a massive impact on me. And it also, I had a bunch of friends that also led me into listening to rock and metal. So, you know, the heavier stuff, Slipknot, Korn, Disturbed, Nine Inch Nails, things like that. So the music definitely had a effect on me. And I have to kind of say, I know I heard once there are writers and then there are storytellers. So writers are people that the story can be like super basic and lame, but the way that they say it is just, it makes it so captivating. Whereas you can get someone that's a storyteller that does kind of the opposite, where the language isn't necessarily that great, but the story that they're telling is phenomenal. I don't know what I am. I tend to think that I'm more of a storyteller, so I'm not necessarily that great in terms of the literary expression. I might be wrong, that's my perception. But in the same way, I kind of think like I'm an atmosphere expresser. So it's not so much about just the language or just the story. I want to create a feeling. I want you to feel a certain way and experience something while reading it. So I think the funny thing with this is it's not necessarily that books so much inspired me as music and movies. So, I did see Twilight as an inspiration, but in terms of books, that's kind of where it ends. It's movies and music. And there's a scene in Queen of the Damned that I definitely think inspired Jocelyn's musical abilities, which is, if you haven't watched Queen of the Damned, I mean, it's been almost 20 years, so it's not no excuse, but there's a scene where Lestat and Marius is walking on the beach, and the song's name is literally On the Beach. And Lestat walks past these, I don't know if this is an offensive term, gypsies. Are they called Romani? I don't know. I'm not familiar. I've heard that gypsies are now an offensive term, but I don't know. If it is, I'm sorry. But he's walking past these two people playing by the fire. It's a woman and her father. And she's playing this viola, and the dad is like doing a little beat. And Lestat is drawn in by this music. And then he picks up a violin. Or does he have a violin? I don't remember. But he has a violin in his hands. And he's like, I don't know, connecting with them. And he just starts playing. And then all of a sudden this like very folky type of violin song just switches suddenly to this almost like rock undertone. And it's almost as if he goes into this trance, and his eyes, when he looks up, gives away that there's something supernatural happening, and then the entire thing like deravels. And something about that, even as I'm sitting here, I'm getting goosebumps. That scene and the ability to, because I don't think he had played violin ever at that stage. So he literally like picked it up, and I don't know what the logic was there, just because he has good hearing or he has a talent for music, I don't know. But something about that ability of just picking up an instrument and just vibing, that lodged into my brain, and I never, ever, ever forgot that scene. And even the music, that very short little music there, also affected me in a large way. So when you read Charmed Vigilance, if you read Charmed Vigilance, I do make some comments about the music annotation. Sorry, I'm actually not a musician, so I'm going to sound dumb when I say these things, but I assure you, I had an actual musician go through everything that I was saying, and he approved. So I just can't remember it off the top of my head because I'm not educated in music. And it's like, I think it's a scordatura annotation. So I was leaning my character more towards the Eastern style of cello. Sorry, that is her main instrument. She chose cello. And I love cello. So maybe that's why she chose it. I don't know. There's not a cello in Queen of the Damned. That was actually the other movie. Sorry, it just clicked. August Rush. How did I forget August Rush? I mean, that movie needs no introduction. That's a musical prodigy that sees and feels and hears music in a different way to anyone else. And I just absolutely fell in love with the concept that anything euphonious can trigger inspiration. I absolutely loved that. And his mom plays cello. I think there was like yes, I always forget the thing's name, but there's a movement. Edgar Edgar Cello Concerto, movement number 8, that she plays in that movie. And I get goosebumps just thinking about it. So that kind of married each other in my mind with the scene of the vampire playing this violin like that. And then that beautiful cello piece with the kid that has this peculiar ability with music or understanding it. So that was a big component as well. And then like I said, the music for Queen of the Damned has a massive inspiration. In fact, there's one of the songs, Forsaken, I think, that has inspired the ending of the sequel. So the second book in the trilogy. I already know how it will end. I also know how the third book will end. I can't start a story if I don't know how it ends. I need to like the ending, otherwise I'm like, So I know a lot of people didn't like the Charmed Vigilance ending, but I do. Because I feel like sometimes books are just too tidy in the way that they end. Life doesn't have a last page with the end or epilogue to follow. So I'm just going to say that. What did I mention now? Okay, so August Rush. Music, yeah, so the songs really inspired me with certain scenes. And just that it was a violinist from India, Shankar, I don't know. Sorry if I'm saying the name wrong. I should have researched this before I did the video, but here we are. And I just absolutely love that type of, I don't know, it just scratches something in my soul. I love songs that have that type of Middle Eastern feel. So I try to incorporate that in a way into the music. I also listen to Apocalyptica, which is a metallic cellist group. I don't think they are a band anymore. But if you read the first chapter or the second chapter, look, man, there's a lot of versions in my head. I can only remember so much. The chapter where they're driving to the house. She's listening to a music piece. It's Apocalyptica Raska, for those who care. So that played a part. And then another movie, which let me just be real with you, freaked me the hell out. There's a certain part in that movie I could not watch until I was well into adulthood. But the movie's name is Pan's Labyrinth. And the entire atmosphere and the vibe and the cinematography and the melancholy of that film deeply touched me. And I think that also had a very deep effect on how I wrote the story and the type of atmosphere and the mood I was trying to create. I would say Pan's Labyrinth, in terms of atmosphere and mood, Pan's Labyrinth was kind of the biggest part of that aesthetic. And then somewhere while I was writing, or maybe afterwards, I think I'll check, but whatever. Inception came out, and I was absolutely in love with Inception, as everyone was and is. And there was definitely some inspiration there because I have had incredibly vivid dreams my entire life. I mean, I can remember dreams I had when I was 4. So it's crazy, and I think that inspired me as well to marry this strange world of dreams with something eerie like Pan's Labyrinth with Twilight. So Twilight as the inspiration with the atmosphere of Pan's Labyrinth and the music of Queen of the Damned and aspects of Inception. That was kind of what I was going for. Um, Okay, so the reason I paused there is Jocelyn does she does energy shifting without knowing it. So she doesn't shift in herself, but she sees things that other people can't see, and she can't control it. That's why they thought that she had seizures. She also had a bit of a disconnect with time. Well, she has a disconnect with time. So in our hours, half an hour might pass, but to her it felt like 2 minutes or whatever. Doesn't always happen. She can't control it. Um, and Avatar, the first Avatar, the one with with Cameron. I think Cameron's the guy. That movie, the aesthetic of that colors definitely inspired. It's not directly like that, but it's like a type of a blueprint, like a backdrop of what I imagined she'd see if she saw the energy of matter around her. Later, as I grew up and got more knowledge, I realized I actually see her seeing things in UV light spectrum. So if you want to check out UV photography, it's actually stunning. That's kind of what I envisioned for her. And then I think that's actually pretty much it in terms of the major hitters. Mostly movies and music. I listen to Florence and the Machine. My music taste has changed drastically. And I have to say, I think in retrospect, the Twilight playlist, I didn't like it the first time I heard it. I was like, oh, what's this? But the older I got, the more I liked that playlist, and it's influenced my music taste to a large degree. I actually have a Charmed Vigilance music playlist on YouTube. I don't think I hit it. So there's songs that I listen to it and then I'm like, ooh, this is giving me the same vibes as the book or one of the characters or whatever. And then on a final note, I'm also very inspired by Fairytales, but not the Disney versions, the Grimm and the Hans Christian Andersen OGs. So I was also drawn by Edgar Allan Poe's poetry when I was younger. Like I mentioned, I was a bit more melancholy. And The Raven was one of my favorites. So my favorite at the moment is I Do Not Love You by Pablo Neruda. Sorry, I don't know how to say that. Love 6 or Love 16, something like that. Anyway, so I love fairy tales and I draw inspiration from them. Even if it's just a hint in my own head towards a certain story. And all I'm going to say is Red Riding Hood, the original, not the Grimm version, if I can put it that way, the version before Grimm, was the inspiration for aspects of the story. And yeah, I mean, there was a time when I watched Vampire Diaries as well, like most people did, but yeah, it inspired me to some degree, not like a massive degree, but yeah, that's the things that I can think of now. There wasn't. I enjoyed the literary aspect of the classics and the way that they said words and the way that they expressed themselves and the way that they described scenes and people. But I would say that's kind of where literary inspirations ended. And then because I was bad, I almost like did a full 180 when I did the rewrites way back when, in 2012, that I tried to sound like a Pride and Prejudice novel with no literary background. So someone commented on my blog post that I had way back when. It doesn't exist anymore. It was so brutal. She said she just kind of feels that my writing is like spraying perfume on a turd. Oh, that was rough. So she just basically said I'm using a bunch of fancy words, but the story itself isn't saying anything. I think she missed the point because I was like going for a more visceral retelling of the story about the white wolf and the black wolf, and it's the one that you feed that wins. So I did feel she missed the point, but I will never forget that. If you ever watch this, I remember. You might not remember, but I will never forget. Anyway, um, you guys might notice that I am going to start a new series, and it's going to be in a different playlist because one of the reasons I started this channel was to stop procrastinating. And one of these things is that I want to get into game development. I am busy modeling the house that she's moving into, and I realized I have stopped doing because I kind of want to record it and share that journey. But if I only do one video a week and I'm still now only by what the book is about and the inspiration, before even getting to the masquerade and building the website, etc., it's going to take forever to actually share the game development journey. And that's going to kind of defeat the purpose. So I'm going to start a different series, which will probably be a lot shorter and a different type of format. But I will still continue the long form. I mean, I'm talking as if I have a bunch of subscribers. I don't. So no one gives a shit. And that's fine, because I give a shit. I don't give a shit. I give a shit. It's weird. Anyway, I think that that's all for now. Okay.